Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds, and in today's video topic, we will go over my crit Shattered Lance Cold Armblade Swarmblade, finally cracking the code on the new Druid transformation. This took a lot of effort to find a way to make Swarmblade actually do damage, so I really hope you guys enjoy. Before we get into the video, if you are enjoying the content so far, I'd suggest to like the video, as that's the best way to support the channel currently, and of course, if you want more quality Last Epoch content in your inbox, consider subscribing to the channel. So, I stand corrected. You guys can laugh at me now. People were like, Dread, you are being overdramatic. Try it again. Well, to be honest, Swarmblade is kind of bad, mainly due to the fact that there's only two ways to build it currently now, I believe, and those ways are very, very specific. This is one of them. We utilized Shard of the Shattered Lances set, which was buffed this patch because they were going to be severely underpowered versus legendaries if left untouched, which is a very nice thing for EHG to do. One of these buffs was to the Lance set. It went from the set bonus to both pieces from a 6% increased health regen per strength to 15% increased melee cold damage per 10 flat regen. This is utter bonkers. That is much more fitting, in my opinion, to the set. So it uses the value that's on your sheet. If you have 500 flat HP regen, it will take that to calculate your damage. This means as we invest into HP regen, it means we also gain a large amount of damage. This carries all of our increased damage, meaning we can focus on the more important things like crit chance and attack speed. We end up dual wielding two shards, as the bonuses they give are too strong to not use both. We can do this thanks to the hefty amount of critical strike support inside Swarmblade, Serpent Strike, and Druid's Mastery Tree. When you look at the planner, you are probably going to be confused. Why aren't I taking Hide Skin? Isn't it one of the best nodes in Druid? Yes, it is. But it's been placed in such a poor spot, it's hard to justify it anymore, especially since we invest 30 plus points in the other masteries. And what I found with Druid in general, it's better to at least deal a little bit of damage than being complete ZDPS, as there's no point in surviving a boss fight if it takes 20 minutes to kill things. So it's much better to dump a little bit of that survivability just for a little bit of damage, and that's what we do here. So Impervious we grab instead. It is a buff gained on melee hit at the top of the Druid tree, and it gives 4% reduced damage taken per stack, and it can go up to 5 max stacks. And when you get hit, you lose only one of those stacks. This is insanely powerful DR versus bosses, and when combined with our staggering 500 HP regen and our low amount of base HP, i.e. 2k, it means Impervious makes us feel just that, impervious. Another neat thing that this build has access to is the Deicide buff. If you are familiar with Path of Exile, then this kind of thing will be very familiar. The Lance set gives us this buff on kill of a rare or boss enemy for 15 seconds. It gives us 20% more damage and 20% more movement speed, which are multiplicative with other modifiers. Usually after killing a rare, I can reach insane speeds of a 120 to 30% movement speed, and you could probably go for even more if you really wanted to. Normally, this kind of thing would not be really good, as it wouldn't be consistent enough in other ARPGs of the genre, but Last Epoch is special, and every monolith is inhabited with hundreds of marsh beetles, ice golems, and diamond matrons who all want to be your friend. Meaning we pretty much have this buff up all the time while running through monoliths, which is very exciting. Thankfully, I managed to pull a 180 on my failure of making a Druid build this patch, and ended up with something much better than I ever thought Swarmblade could ever achieve and more. With all that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with the Swarmblade. So you must be wondering, why do I have these on my bar? Well, this build is built around never being pumped out of Swarmblade, so these are the only things I need on my bar: my Summon Wolf and my Swarmblade. So let's change our clothing, shall we? There you go. Absolutely satisfying. I applaud EHG for making that transition so unbelievably sexy. Also, as well, I'm so thankful that they buffed it so that we only have to wait 6 seconds instead of 20 seconds for transformations. So that is very nice. Yeah, let's get into one thing I am going to talk about, and I'm going to be blunt with you guys. This build is kind of expensive. Like you don't need much to start it. You mainly just need, ooh, my inventory, terrible. But you mainly need double Shard of the Shattered Lance. You could even start with one if you really wanted to. And then of course a Fragments of the Shattered Lance. Now these, they drop from the Stone Lance timeline, and I believe both of them can drop from normal. I believe they're the shared drops from normal. And what this means is you could technically start this at level 62 if you really wanted to. Oh, level 65 and 68, I guess, since that's what the required levels are. But yeah, you could start this very early on in your like setup and all that. But yeah, it took a lot of time to farm the blessings, took a lot of time to farm the gear. I'm not completely refined yet, and this is one of those kind of builds that you can spend a long time investing into and still not be finished. So if that's what you're looking for, especially this patch, then that's the build for you. But yeah, let's get into the skill rotation. So the skill rotation is for normal monolith gameplay. What we do is we start a fight with Swarm Strike. And Swarm Strike, what's beautiful about it is we have it set up so that it will cause our wolf to howl, meaning we gain the frenzy and the haste buff, and also a bunch of damage as well, which is really nice. And then of course we arm blade. We do want our wolf to be attacking things because he's part of our armor shred. It's very important. As you can tell, we're getting up to 40k crits on the dummy. And you must be wondering, is that impressive, Dread? Well, the Fizz crit version of this build only gets up to 20k crits. So we have literally effectively doubled the amount of damage that we normally would get. Obviously, there you saw that like I got kicked out of form, but if you're in an actual boss fight, that probably would not happen. It doesn't happen at all, because what'll happen is the tornadoes will spawn and they'll start critting, which will give you rage back, and of course, all a lot of other stuff. Now, for boss fights, the way you set up, just for a little bit of extra DPS, it's a very small amount of DPS, but you can see what I'm talking about here. We'll summon the hives here. Now, the way Swarm Strike works is that we consume uh, like wasps here, it will make our swarm blade do a little bit more damage. And as you can tell, it does a decent chunk of damage. It's not like the most damage in the world, but it's like good enough to like clear trash. And it's enough to like affect our single target, because if we're doing like 40k crits and we add 10k per second on top of that, that is a hefty chunk added on top. So it's nice to have that little option of being able to spice up the single target just a little bit there. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the skill rotation. One thing to note, so the tornadoes you spawn from Arm Blade here, they do suck in enemies. So you can actually kind of suck enemies in and make your small little area that you have here feel a little bit bigger, right? But yeah, that's pretty much it for the skill rotation. Now let's talk about the skills. Now for Swarmblade. Ho. So we take 1 point into Viper's Call. So your Serpent Strike tree now applies to arm blade slashes, and it does not require a spear. Now, a lot of people have been confused about this. So for instance, Serpent Strike here, it has two components. It has the skill tree, and of course, if you hold Alt, it'll say a melee attack with 140% poison chance, and then poisons you inflict by Serpent Strike lasts 40% longer. And then of course, you also have all the attribute scaling. Now, this thing, what's on this little thing, like this little thing here, this page, you do not get that for your arm blade slashes. You only get what's inside the tree. So if you're trying to play an arm blade poison build and you're wondering why you're not dealing any damage, it's because you're not gaining the 40% duration there from Serpent Strike, which is one of the main reasons to play Serpent Strike. So that's why your poison builds are feeling terrible, is because of that. And of course, the dexterity stacking sadly doesn't work for arm blades either. Uh, I understand why they did this because it would be kind of overpowered that way. But yeah, that's an explanation of that node for people. Then 2 points travel to endless pressure. So we gain rage on hit on boss, and this can apply with our tornadoes, which will cast lightning, and then of course our attacks as well, and a little bit of HP on hit for a little bit more sustain. Then 1 point to Wind Fury Strikes. Now, the problem with this node is Tornado is a mana whore, meaning that it will consume mana all the time. So you got to make sure that you're able to sustain that rage cost. Now, especially since it recast the tornado every 6 seconds. Normally, what people would do is it would take tornado and go the route where it makes it, stay near you. But I've gone for the route where I can have multiple tornadoes since Armblade's summoning so many tornadoes so quickly, like I can show you here, like 1 tornado, 2 tornado, 3 tornado, 4 tornado. What I'm doing is I'm utilizing the lightning that it casts to apply armor shred and give me rage back as well, which pretty much gives me back my rage on bosses, which is one of the problems with the old version of the build that I tried yesterday. So that's a nice little tech I found out. Then we take 1 point into Earth Stinger Travel. We don't care about the melee flat, doesn't matter to us. Then 3 points in a Needle-like Sting. Now, if +2 to Swarmblade will ever exist, which we're still waiting on, by the way, EHG, nudge, nudge, +2 Swarmblade would be nice. We would put the extra 2 points here so that we would go up to 10% base crit, which means we can dump some crit some places and open up gearing slots. So yeah, base crit's really strong. This is generic base crit. This is a base crit for everything, including your tornadoes and stuff like that, which make it so your tornadoes actually crit to halfway decently. And why that's important is because there's a node inside Druid here that gives you 2 rage on crit, which is generic, meaning that the tornadoes can also sustain your rage that way, meaning that most of the time we will never run out of rage on a single target, which was, like I said, the biggest problem beforehand when I was trying to build yesterday. Then 2 points in travel into Slashing Spiral. This does make our area for our Swarm Blade a little bit bigger. The Swarm Strike, I mean, it's all the same word. But yeah, and then of course 1 point travel into Carnage. Now, if you wanted to play a build that was much more focused on damage with Swarm Strike, you could do that. It's just you'd have to dump something significant like attack speed, which is really big, and stuff like that, or the chonkiness. So you could go for more damage than this, but I would highly advise not to, as this tree is pretty perfect. I can't really think of anything else I would do differently other than add more crit. Then 1 point into Inspiring Swarm. Why this is so powerful is because it allows us to utilize our active companion's abilities while inside Swarm Strike, while inside Swarmblade. So if we're going to look here, we got Howl. Howl gives us 50% increased damage, and then Frenzy. We can also spec it so that we gain haste for 3 seconds, which is pretty much up all the time because that's the same cooldown that our Swarm Strike is, and it bypasses the cooldown of the Howl, meaning I can just spam Swarm Strike and I will have access to the buff up all the time, especially on bosses. Now, the wolf does have to be near you for that to work. And of course, we get even more increased damage from Snarl, meaning that this node is absolutely insane. It is like one of the best nodes inside Swarmblade overall. It allows you to actually play with your companion abilities while playing Swarmblade. You could use this with a Spriggan form to be more defensive and to have like a kind of like an AoE that like heals your locusts or whatever, stuff like that. You could do that, or you could use stuff like the poison pool from Scorpion, which I don't know why you do that, but stuff like that. That is insane. And since it bypasses the cooldown, it's just nuts. It's absolutely nuts. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. And then, of course, we take 3 points travel to Locust Agility. This is a lot of armor. Then 1 point into Ironclad Beetle. So it makes all of my dodge turn into armor. The reason why that is we're doing the same setup with Primal Reflexes, where we gain a bunch of armor on Swarmblade use, meaning that we can get up to a decent chunk of armor. Now, I am not really supporting this armor as of the moment, but in theory, with a little bit of investment, maybe some legendary items, you could invest a little bit more into the armor and get about double this number very easily. So that's why this node is so strong, is because you get a bunch of armor for just standing still and attacking, which is something you do a lot as Swarmblade. So having DR is nice. Then of course, 4 points into Wasp Light. I had to cut 1 point just so I could fit everything. So we get attack speed. The main reason why we want as much attack speed as possible is since we are using double shards, we do not have attack speed on said shards, so we have to get attack speed everywhere else to make up for that fact. So this is one of those places. Now, Tornado, like I said, I explained earlier, and is of course the utility setup where we get the movement speed, and of course the attack and cast speed because we want as much attack speed as possible. And of course, we also make it so that our tornadoes stay still with these nodes, making it so that our storms, they will keep hitting the same target, meaning that we can actually apply even more armor shred stacks and cold shred stacks, and also as well give us rage while in Swarmblade. So this is definitely the best way to set it up currently, in my opinion, for that. And of course, Thorn Totem. Thorn Totem here, it's just for extra armor shred, as you can tell behind my head. You just want a little bit extra armor shred. Also, as well, there's a node inside Shaman that gives you attack speed if you have a totem, which is really nice for you because, like I said, you want as much attack speed as possible. I have a node missing here because I'm actually missing a point from the campaign because screw Majasa. It's like I don't want to do it, so we're not going to do it. So that's why I'm missing a point there. But yeah, this will give you totems. Now, for me, from what I've seen, whenever I enable Grove Mind, I lag a crud ton. So if you don't lag a bunch when using Grove Mind, I would suggest using it. But if you're like me and you have random lag problems for no reason, then yeah, you can take off a Grove Mind and just summon one. Because the thing is, you'll only need one totem to get the attack speed, so you don't need all the totems at once. Obviously, it's cool, and it makes it so you can, shred armor and all that, but you don't necessarily need it, quote unquote. Then for Serpent Strike here, so you got to remember this is going to be inladen with our Arm Blade Strikes, our attack here. So whatever we do here will apply to them. Now we take 2 points travel into Nagasa's Venom, 2 points travel into Debilitating Poison, although we do like the Blinding Poison because it blinds enemies, which is important for the next node, which gives us 75% more hit damage against blinded enemies. And of course, obviously, this is the only percentage more damage modifier you have for your arm blade strikes. This is why currently it is very, very difficult to make a swarm blade damage build because this is the only one you have. If you come from Path of Exile, which I know a large majority of my audience do due to analytics, this is like comparing a build that has like a 5-6 link to a build that has like a 1 or a 2 or a 3 link. So that's one of the biggest problems with Swarmblade, which I hope that they fix eventually, is add more support for Armblade inside the actual Swarmblade tree, like actually give it some like attack speed and stuff like that. Like not attack speed, I mean some more damage somewhere around here, make it like deal more damage per locus or whatever they want to do. Just give us more avenues of scaling so we don't have to just play this one specific build. And of course, 1 point travel into Plague Bear, 4 points into Spear Flurry, giving us increased attack speed because, like I said, we want as much as possible. Then 6 points into Primal Reflex, which gets turned into armor. Like I showed you, it's very strong. Then 2 points to Eye of the Viper, gives us even more crit chance so that we can reach our cap much quicker. Now, to note, if you do not care, if you do not have issues with bleed, you could take out nodes out of Primal Reflex and put it into Blood Flurry and have attack speed as well here. But obviously, like I said, my computer lags for no reason, so I can't really run bleed right now. Then for wolf, this is your stereotypical buff wolf tree. I've been using it for a while now, about a month. It is very, very versatile as just getting all of that extra damage while also just being able to use howl constantly. It just makes the build feel so much better. I've only had the dog die a few times when I got a little bit carried away in like chapter 9 mob areas, but that's really much it. And I only have one HP regen mod for them, and then like one or two minion health rolls, which is enough for this build. And that's pretty much it for the skills today. Now for the passives. So this is a little bit more interesting than normal because this is completely different than what you normally would do on a druid. And of course, 6 points into Gift of the Wilderness gives increased minion health, which is strong for our doggo. 2 points travel into Primal Strength. Since we are stacking health regen, obviously you would want more of these, but I was trying to go for increased companion health instead, so my doggo could stop dying. Then, of course, 1 point into Harmony of Blades, so we can dual wield, very important. 5 points into Hunter's Restoration, so that we can get increased health as well. Then for Shaman, we take 4 points into Shamanic Infusion. This gives us Cold Pen, which is all of our damage. So Cold Pen's really nice. 1 point travel into Silent Protector so that we can get to Totemic Fury, which gives us a bunch of attack speed and is the main reason why we're even inside Shaman. Also as well, it unlocks Tornado for us as well. Then for Beastmaster, this is your stereotypical defense Beastmaster setup. If you've seen one, you've seen them all. One major difference though is I set up aspect of the shark so that I could actually get some more armor shred so that I could shred armor quicker. I increase the duration so it lasts the entire time and makes it so I always have stacks of armor shred up, as any build that attacks fast benefits from it heavily, as it is a percentage more damage modifier even at the lessened rate of elemental damage versus like Viz damage. It is still really strong and one of the best ways to give yourself more damage, because if EHG isn't put more damage inside the tree, then I'm just going to make my own more damage, and this is one of those. And that's pretty much it for Beastmaster. Now for Druid here, we take 7 points travel in Spirit Warden, although the flat HP is nice. 5 points into Primordial Resonance. Now they've released this weird thing where like if you put a certain amount of points, you get a bonus stat. So for instance, this one you get 10% elemental penetration while transform. Absolute bonkers because we are only cold. Then 4 points in a Focus Wrath. I found 4 points to be enough to reduce the rage enough. The increased damage is always nice. Then 1 point in a Rancor makes it so that whenever we are not using abilities like this right now, I do not lose rage. But as soon as I use an ability, even if I'm not in combat, I will start losing rage again. But the beautiful thing about the transformations is even if you get kicked out and you have a problem, you just have to wait 6 seconds and come back in and you're full at rage. Now the problem is most builds couldn't survive that, but thanks to the ginormous amount of HP regen, it makes getting knocked out of Swarmblade a lot less scary for us. Then, of course, 5 points to Wind the Leaves for the attack speed. The bonus doesn't matter for us. 5 points to Bushstalker for crit, and then health on crit. Health leech on crit, I mean. This is really strong. This is part of our sustain. Not only can we regen a bunch of our HP per second, we can also gain a bunch of leech as well to make up the difference. Then 8 points into Piercing Gale for the Cold Pen. This plus the pen down here, plus the pen in here, actually makes this build viable. If they did not place this Cold Pen here, I doubt I'd be talking here right now because I would not be playing Swarmblade. So the Cold Pen, actually insane with this setup. Like, I love it. I love it so much. Then 6 points into Overgrown. Like I said, flat HP regen is very strong for us as we have a bunch of increased HP regen, so that helps a lot. Then 8 points into Rageborn, so we get the Rage on crit. So this is per individual crit, so if you crit like 5 enemies with the same attack, you will gain like 10 crit, and this is very strong when you walk up to a pack and just do this and crit everything. And you also gain rage on hit as well from this node, I believe 1 rage on hit per enemy. So we're gaining about 3 rage per enemy hit, which is actually really strong. And that's pretty much it for that. Then 5 points in Impervious. This is what I was talking about before. This node is busted. It's insane. It's like one of the best reasons to play Druid right now. Then, of course, like I said, I was not running Hide Skin. As you can tell, The reason why is because where are you getting the points? It's so hard to get up to this point anyway, so it's like hard to like justify 10 points in this when you could use 5 points in impervious and just do something even better. And that's pretty much it for the passive tree. Now for gearing, I do have a few perfect well, not perfect, but still good idols. Melee crit multi while transformed. That's what you want on your prefixes, because you cannot run melee crit on your weapons because obviously you're running set items. Then of course, increased health regen while transformed on the suffix. This is absolute bonkers. This plus a crit multi roll is like your best in slot idle, and you should be running 4 of these because it's insane. It's so strong because it gives you so much damage. And of course, I'm filling out the blanks with a bunch of resistance stuff. I'm running one Thorn Totem idle because we do need to eventually summon a totem so that we can actually attack faster, which is really nice. And that's pretty much it for the idols. The helmet went melee crit multi while transformed, vitality, regen. For the amulet, crit multi, crit, resistance. You could either use a bone or a gold. I just had a gold lying around for this one. Double shard of the Shattered Lance, of course. You get a lot of melee flat cold, a lot of increased damage, and of course the flat HP regen is absolutely essential for this build. Then one for our chest here, melee crit multi while transform. Well, I guess it is just generic crit multi. Yeah, generic crit multi while transform, HP. Then of course HP regen, so we get a bunch more regen. The chest is one of the biggest slots of HP regen because you have so much to get from it. Then for the rings, like it would be strength, crit, resistance. We want strength so that we can scale our armor that we get from Armblade. This is actually really cool. This is actually a really good ring, although sadly it's not like crit or anything, but it's still a good ring. Good increased damage, yada yada yada. The strength, resistance as well is really strong on this ring. And of course, we got the gloves here as always. This is a very strong pair of gloves. You actually don't want these gloves specifically. You want attack speed, crit, HP regen. We get a bunch of HP, flat regen here. So that's really strong. You want as much as possible, and you want the HP regen here as well. I just didn't have it at the time. And of course, the boots, HP regen, vitality, movement speed, and then fragments of the Shattered Lance as well. As you can tell, yes, our resistances are very torn, meaning we need to get resistances to other places. I was trying to get void resistance. I got crit instead here. We really need this HP regen. This is really strong. This can go up to 200%. This is one of the strongest blessings for you to get, and absolutely, in my opinion, mandatory to play the build properly because it gives you a lot of damage, because 200% health regen is equal to almost like, I don't know, like 300% increased damage. Like, this is nuts. This is like absolutely nuts. And of course, you'd eventually want Crit Avoid here, so you can run Crit Avoid. Then Cold Shred's really strong because that's just another percentage more damage, although it's not as needed because you have the Cold Pen already. So that's pretty much it for the blessings. And that's pretty much it for the build today, guys. For legendaries, I would recommend I would recommend a legendary Thorn Slinger. Where is it? A legendary Thorn Slinger, so you can get +1 to Swarmblade. As you can tell here, I'll put it on. It gives you +1 to Swarmblade and a lot of other skills. So having a legendary Thorn Slinger would be really strong. Now, for other things legendary, you cannot turn your weapons legendary, which is sad, but there are other stuff you could utilize. I'm just thinking right here, real quick, just to make sure I'm thinking of everything. A legendary Woven Flesh with HP or crit multi would be really nice because it means you don't have to worry about crit multi. What else? I'm trying to think exactly. Uh, no, that's not what you'd get. Oh, a legendary Siphon of Anguish. This would give you increased damage taken on enemies, and having a legendary one would be really nice. I actually do, but it doesn't fit for the build I'm playing. But yeah, like this is really strong, gives you a bunch of leech, and also makes it so that you apply Doom on hit, which is a scaling ailment that can scale up to like 20% increased melee damage taken, which is just more damage for us. So having a legendary Siphon of Anguish is really nice. Of course, this is really easy to farm because Oribus is like everywhere. So eventually you'll have one and be able to use it. Obviously, Ravenous Voids. I'm not using it here because that'd be showing off. I'm not going to use it, obviously, but Ravenous Voids would be nice. You could technically swap into a Ravenous Voids. That would be a lot of HP and a lot of DR. Technically, can if you have it, but like I would rather go for the attack speed for the damage. Anything else I can think of off the top of my head? I don't believe so. I think that's really it. I mean, I guess you could like do an Exalted Falcon if you get a +4. Movement speed would be really cool. Uh, yeah, that's. Or I guess Arboreal Circuits that could be good too because movement speed. Yeah, it's not really much else I could think of. Those are the main ones, mainly just the Doom Ring, of course, like just the Doom Ring mainly. Of course, maybe movement speed boots as well. Like for instance, let's say Metropolis, since your dodge gets turned to armor, this is just 200 armor if you've been like hit recently, which is really strong. So stuff like that as well. You could go with Rain Dance as well. Oh, Rain Dance would actually, yeah. Now that I think about it, Rain Dance, yeah, this would be a really good one to turn legendary, and it could be easy to farm because it's 61. So just getting like an extra movement speed roll on this, or getting the HP regen on it would be really nice. But that's pretty much it for legendaries. I think this build isn't too legendary like required, so it's like whatever. With all that being said, guys, I am very tired as you can tell. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye.